Hi love, and welcome to the first ever episode of Confessions of a Punta Cana Bride. I'm Katya and I'm so excited to spill the beans about everything to do with planning and having the most incredible destination wedding. You might know me, but if you don't, my husband Rob and I have had this photography company for over 8 years, 6 of which we've spent living and breathing weddings in Punta Cana. And I'll tell you how we came to do that in a little bit. But first, I'd like to welcome you. I've been procrastinating making this video for a really long time, but I just have to share with you from the heart everything that I know, because I have been exactly in your shoes where you are today. Rob and I got married in Punta Cana in 2012. Before that, we had a successful photography business in Canada, where we're from. And so going into my wedding, I knew a lot of what I wanted to do and what I didn't want. And still, there were so many things that tripped me up. And I want to share with you what are some of those regrets, things that I would have done differently, and the highlights, of course. I made some notes, and I really want this conversation to feel like we're having coffee. My cup is already lukewarm, but that's okay. That's just office life. And I get asked the same questions over and over in emails by brides. So I'd really love for this to feel like we're having a FaceTime or, well, that coffee, even though we're probably across the ocean away. So why should you listen to me anyway? Why am I the expert on destination weddings? Well, not only because I was a destination bride myself, but also because as a wedding photographer, I have been with my couples pretty much every minute of their weddings. And if you think of other vendors like your makeup artist, your wedding planner, wedding coordinator, even locally, they're not spending the time with you. They're maybe with you at different points of the day, or maybe they're planning ahead of time. But I've been the one who witnesses how the day unfolds, and I have seen it all, trust me. I really care. If you haven't noticed, I really care. Living and breathing destination weddings is something that's been part of my life for the last 8 years. And this office, I can't even tell you how many hours I spend in this office, which, by the way, is in Punta Cana, in a beautiful area called Punta Cana Village. Rob and I bought this house last year, and I almost never leave it because I'm here answering emails. So I really hope that these videos will help make you feel like you're an expert as well. Who we are? Well, Rob and I got married here, and we fell in love at a destination wedding as well. We fell in love in Mexico. It's a really cute story, which I'll tell quickly as I can. We met in Mexico. I was a photographer at a wedding, and he was a guest. And I suppose he just didn't think that shacking up with a bridesmaid was cool enough. He went straight for the photographer. And at the time, we were living in different cities. I was living in Edmonton, Alberta, and he was living in Vancouver. And so we thought, hey, we'll just give it our all and have this romance and don't have to see each other ever again. But on day 3, according to Rob, he knew he wanted to marry me, and it didn't take me long after that to know that he was a guy for me too. 7 months later, we were engaged, and a little after that, we decided to move to Dominican Republic to pursue this dream of mine that he jumped on. how that came to be was really interesting too, because there was actually a couple from Edmonton who couldn't find a photographer of the caliber that they wanted. And so this was about 6 years ago. And they hired us to fly to Punta Cana to shoot their wedding. And I remember walking on the beach and just seeing that there's some condos and there's some people sitting in coffee shops that don't look like they're the regular tourists. And I was like, are you kidding me? You can just like rent a place and live here? So that's what we did. We literally dropped everything, took a huge leap of faith to come to Punta Cana, rented a tiny apartment, and started working on rebranding and making ourselves known. And at first it was really hard, but we believed and we worked really hard. And 6 years now we're here and we are not going anywhere. So that's our love story in a nutshell. And today I want to tell you about my wedding because I have a lot to reflect on. It's been 6 years and I still think about it almost every day. It was such an incredible experience. And what's really cool for me is that our destination wedding was at Jellyfish restaurant. You probably have heard about it if you've done any research into Punta Cana destination weddings, because it's a pretty hot location. But since our own wedding, we photographed probably, well, over 100 weddings for sure at Jellyfish alone. So every time we've gone there, I get extra mad butterflies because it feels like, in a way, we are reliving our memories too. This feels really personal for me and really exciting for me because I witness brides, much like you and I, have the same stresses and regret the same things. And I just want you to not experience that. And if I could help even a little bit, shift your perspective, shift the way that you view what your day, big day should be like, I think that that'll be a job well done. And honestly, I don't care if you hire me. I may not be your cup of tea, but I want to help because it's just a beautiful thing to do from the place where I sit. Every bride deserves the most amazing day, and well, you'll see how much I have to share. At this moment, I want to mention my blog because a couple of weeks after our wedding in 2012, I made a blog post. It was really fresh in my mind, and I called it Confessions of a Punta Cana Bride. And unbeknownst to me, it would pretty much go viral, well, in the small niche circle of destination brides. And it still receives more hits than any other blog post I've ever put out. So do take a look at the notes section in this video so that you can check it out, because I expand on a lot of points that I'll mention in this video that you will find hopefully really helpful. There's another blog post that I created called Destination 101, everything you need to know about your Punta Cana wedding. And it's a massive post with so much information. And it's also, a lot of brides say that it's a godsend and that there's so much valuable information in it. However, I find that it's so overwhelming that a lot of brides will read it, even read it several times, and then they just kind of forget, and then they ask me again and send me the same questions again. And so this episode is quite long because it's the first one. but I'm planning to create much shorter videos in the future that will address a specific topic, so that you can feel like, again, I'm just chatting with you like a girlfriend, telling you specifically what that particular issue is all about. But that is a great blog post to reference, which I will include in the notes section as well. So why don't we start with the meaty, nitty-gritty, soulful stuff, the regrets. Everyone has wedding regrets, even when we say, oh, my wedding day was perfect, I wouldn't have changed a thing. There are still lurking things that you wish were different. So the first one that comes up for me is, and Rob as well, of course, is we didn't do anything, any kind of a welcome event with our guests. And we had about 65 people show up, mostly from Canada and some from other places. And some of them knew each other, some of them didn't. And I really wish we would have done a booze cruise or something like that for all of them. There are several companies in the area that provide this service. In particular, our favorite is Rennie Travel. They do some really fun parties, and I really wish we would have done that. Just something where you drink and make memories together, nothing fancy. My second regret is the biggest one and the heaviest one. And it has to do with my parents. I love them dearly. We have an amazing relationship. But they freaked out on my wedding day. And partly that has to do with the fact that our wedding ceremony was at 6 a.m. Yeah, it was at sunrise. And the mistake that I made was I didn't keep them out of my room. So they came over, I think like 4:30 or something like that, in the morning as I was getting ready. And they were just balls of nerves. They were just not themselves. And they wanted to micromanage things that they couldn't have any control over, and they didn't like that I was drinking champagne. But I'm sorry, what else are you supposed to do before your wedding, before your sunrise wedding, so that you're not like this? They just really spoiled my morning. I'm sorry to say, but even 6 years later, I feel raw about it. And we've gotten over it. I've gotten a lovely apology, and after the ceremony, they were brilliant when everything actually happened, and it was such a beautiful experience. They were fine, but they were really doubting my decision, mine and Rob's decision to have a sunrise ceremony. They thought it was the stupidest idea in the world, but which of course they took back because it was amazing. And so I urge you to really sit down with your fiance and think, who are the people in your wedding, among your guests or close family members, who might be a little bit on the edge, so to speak, who might either cause drama or just shift your energy in a way that's shitty. Think about that and just don't have them around before moments that are big, like before your ceremony. I would have loved to just contain that kind of sacredness of the moment and not have someone close to me who would freak out and call me things. And anyway, the third regret on our list is the ceremony. There were a couple of points I wish I would have changed. So we had a friend do our ceremony, officiate it, and a lot of people do this, and it's awesome. I would totally recommend it, especially if you already tie the knot back home. But we didn't review his actual speech. we were just like, yeah, Tony, we trust you, you're great. That was that. And he tried so hard to do a good job, and he did, but he took like so many parts from the internet, from maybe, I don't know, 10 different ceremonies, and meshed them all together. So it was kind of way too complicated and just didn't really fit our personalities. And yeah, I should have proofread it beforehand. Another thing is, Rob and I didn't write our own vows, and I totally regret that, especially because our videographers were so amazing, and that's the part I would have loved to have in the video. And things have really changed actually in the last 6 years. I've seen the evolution of how couples do more and more of their own vows, and they actually make their vows super unique and really cute and funny, endearing. And on Etsy you can find these cute little booklets that say in beautiful calligraphy, his vows, her vows, and we didn't have that even 6 years ago. It doesn't seem like a long time, but yeah, I would have done that. Totally would have done that. Go Etsy. A little side note, we ran away to Vegas. We totally did for our actual wedding, and most of our guests didn't know. And it was a total spur of the moment decision a few months before our real wedding in Punta Cana, and it was so much fun. Rob wore a second-hand suit that was a little bit too small for him, and I wore this super cute 50s polka dot dress. We had a case of champagne and we went to an Elvis chapel. It was just a gong show. It was fantastic. I didn't have a photographer. It was just like, I don't know, made for amazing memories. And if you want to chat more to me about that, I have some really fun stories, but I would totally recommend doing that. It takes the pressure off, and you're able to have a ceremony in Dominican Republic that is not bound by any legal rules, like that you have to stay in the country for 3 days before getting married or anything like that. And you can choose the person who will officiate your wedding. It doesn't necessarily have to be some legal officiant that is bilingual and could potentially deliver a super dry ceremony. Next up, family photos. We messed up, and it's my own fault, but when it came time to do family pictures, we were kind of disorganized, and our photographers, as much as I love them, they were not excited about portraits. Neither one of them was married, had a marriage at the time. They didn't kind of realize how important, no matter how boring, family portraits are. And they're photojournalists, so they were like, yeah, you know, let's just get to the fun part, like photographing candid kids playing in the sand. And so we kind of rushed through the portraits, and I really regret that there are some pictures that are missing. Like, I don't have a single photo of me with Rob's siblings, or like him with his twin sisters, whom I adore. And like, if there's one picture that I really wanted to print and keep in my office, maybe that would be it, because it would make me smile all the time. And don't get me wrong, we have hundreds of mind-blowingly amazing photos, but when it's a regret, it could be the smallest little thing and you remember it. So since our own wedding, I as a photographer am such a stickler for family photos, and Rob and I are constantly scanning the crowd to make sure there are no combinations that we missed. Because it's important. It really is. You never know what the future has in store and which people will still be in your lives and how often you'll see them. And so there's a reason why those portraits are called traditional. The other thing is also photography related, has to do with posing. Our photographers were incredible, as I already mentioned, but they're two dudes and they kind of had a really like laid back approach to photographing us, which is great. I love that. But I would have liked some direction as well, a bride with fairly wide shoulders, and I just didn't see myself from behind their lens. So I really would have liked just a tiny bit more of direction. And so especially since having that experience myself and being a woman and knowing what it's like to have all those little insecurities, that's something that I pay huge attention to as a photographer. So one of the future episodes in this channel will definitely be some posing tips, which will be really helpful if you don't hire me. But if you do hire me, you can be sure that I take care of that really beautifully on the day and make sure that all my brides know all my little tips and tricks, how to move in subtle ways to look best in front of the camera. And yeah, so Rob is really shy in front of the camera. So he's not here to tell you this, but he told me to tell you that there are two things that he regrets from our wedding day. So this is from Rob to your beloveds, to your fiancés, okay? Here we go. The first one is, he regrets not toasting me, his bride. Isn't that so sweet? Yeah, totally. I mean, we get enough compliments on the day as brides, but it definitely would have been nice. And I would say maybe 30% of grooms do it. And so if your guy knows that that's a cool thing to do, he might want to do it, but he might forget. And that's a really nice thing to remember. Yeah, and the second thing from my Rob is what he wore. He chose to go for comfort instead of dressing up in something too formal. So he ended up getting kind of an inexpensive, non-fitted linen suit that I thought looked great on him, but he asked me to say this specifically. For most men, it's your one chance to look like James Bond. I can't agree anymore. So that's another thing he would have done differently, is he would have gone for a custom tailored light suit. Right now, navy is really in, by the way, and it's quite classic. But yeah, he really, every time he looks at the photos, he's like, oh, I wish I would have worn a different suit. And well, if I can transition to what I wore, I'm still obsessed with my dress. I really wish that I had more chances to wear it. Rob and I found my dress in Vegas on the trip when we eloped. And I found it in a small boutique. I had no idea that I had it in me to spend $3,500 freaking on a dress, but I did. And it's an Amy Mickelson design, which was ivory silk with lace, and I'm just goo goo gaga over that dress. My favorite feature was probably the slit in the front, and there are two things that I regret about my dress. The first one was we hired a seamstress to take my slit up. Of course, I wanted more shebang, more legs, more breeze, and so the original slit, which was not not that high. I wanted it to go higher, but yeah, she went too high, and you could pretty much see my hoo-ha. So it was pretty stressful getting alterations again really close to the wedding day, but it all worked out. And the second thing, again, that has to do with dress alterations is my boobs. I tried the dress on and it looked beautiful, but my seamstress decided to be super nice to me and give me huge knockers. So the inserts in my dress were enormous, and I mean, I didn't mind, but then when I was dancing or moving, you could kind of see that there's just a lot going on there, that anyone who knows me knows that there's really not that much there. So if I could do it again, I would have really wore my dress for more than 5 minutes and felt what it's like to live in it, so that I felt even more fabulous. But these are just little things. What else do we have here? Oh yes, dancing during the reception. So Rob and I hired a choreographer like a year before our wedding, and had a whole whooping 2 sessions with this choreographer because we wanted to do something really fun and cool. And that was an epic fail, because after the second session we were like, you know, this is really fun to do for fun, but we both felt so much stress thinking about the performance that we potentially would have to do on our wedding day. So we just cut that. We just cut that whole thing. And I don't know, we don't really slow dance together. So we decided not to do a first dance. And looking back at it now, I don't regret that at all. That's just something that was us not to do a dance. And we didn't. However, both of us do regret not dancing with our parents. And especially being parents ourselves, our baby boy Zion is 2 years old, but I cry like a little girl every time I see a beautiful groom dancing with his mom. I just always think like, oh my God, what's gonna be me one day? And I really wish I would have given that to my dad, and Rob really wishes he would have done that with his mom. Yeah. I regret that we didn't have very much time after our wedding day to just chill out and just be together and just shut up and not say anything and not hug anyone and not make small talk with anyone. Because it was so overwhelming, honestly. It was, I mean, there's so much love coming your way and it's beautiful, but you kind of feel like you have to entertain everyone a little bit. And everyone's there for you, and you want to make sure your aunts and cousins are all taken care of and nobody's upset that you didn't spend time with them throughout the week. And maybe for us it was even more pronounced because we, at the time, were already living in Punta Cana. So a lot of the people who came hadn't seen us for a while, and we just really felt that we were pulled every which way, and as wonderful as that was, we were exhausted. We got married in April 15th, 16th? 15th. Oh God, don't tell Rob, he'll kill me. And so mid-April, it was a super like crazy busy time for weddings. So we actually shot a wedding the day before all our guests arrived. I know, crazy. And then again, I think maybe 3 or 4 days after we got married, we had another wedding that we had to show up for and just, well, work. And it was too much. And of course, I know that's not going to be part of your reality, but one thing that we hear couples saying over and over is that the same thing, they're exhausted. It's like you need another vacation after your vacation. So If you are spending a week here, maybe you could negotiate a couple of days at home where you could turn off your phones and just Netflix and chill without the world knocking on your door. Or better yet, if you're able to spend 10 or 14 days in Punta Cana, so having a small honeymoon after your wedding. Don't tell people you're doing that, because I bet you some people are going to want to stay and hang out, and you're going to feel like you have to be polite, and it's just not good. Not good. I've seen some couples who literally don't tell anybody that they booked a 10-day vacation, and everyone thinks that it's over after 7 days, and that's awesome, because those couple of days can make a huge difference. I want to tell you about how we made our wedding unique, especially with Pinterest these days. It's great, but we see the same weddings showing up over and over again just because brides are sharing literally a Pinterest board with the wedding planner, and it's the same wedding over and over. And of course it's still really, really special because it's your wedding, but there are little things that you can do that don't necessarily cost money or are that time consuming, that can make a big difference and show off your personalities. As I already mentioned, Rob and I had a sunrise ceremony, and well, I love that we did that. That's probably my one favorite thing that we did. It was inspired by the fact that as wedding photographers, Rob and I were shooting a lot of what we call rock the dress sessions, and they had become quite popular. When we first came to Punta Cana, nobody was doing that, and photographer acquaintances in the area, when they heard that that's what I was doing, they were like, "You crazy? Nobody's gonna wake up on their wedding week at 5 or 6 in the morning, put on their makeup and go have champagne with you, watch a sunrise." But guess what? Those sessions became so popular, and now actually everyone is doing them. So Rob and I have seen so many beautiful sunrises. We thought, why not do something different and have a sunrise ceremony? Because in Punta Cana, the sun comes out of the water at sunrise. And sunset, it sets behind your venue or your resort, so you're not seeing the sun. Like, for example, in Costa Rica at sunset, you would see the sun sink into the water, which is so beautiful. So we wanted to have it the other way. And the second reason was that, well, we're yogis and we love our morning practice so much. It's just so special. There's something incredible about being out on the beach in the beginning of the day when there's not a soul in sight. It's a spiritual experience, I'd say, regardless of your orientation. It's a really, really special feeling. We were a little bit worried that some people might not make it, but I can be really stern and assertive. And so I went around the day before the wedding to everybody and was like, "You know it's tomorrow morning, right? You know the time. Tell me the time you have to be in the lobby for the bus to pick you up." And people would be like, yeah, don't worry, I have my outfit ready and everything. So everyone showed up and everyone loved it. We specifically told everyone not to worry about makeup or just doing anything particularly special. We just asked them to wear white, which is another thing I really, 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 really loved. And to just show up. We had a case of champagne on, you see the theme here, champagne? It works. A case of champagne on the bus. And so from Dreams Palm Beach, where everyone stayed, to Jellyfish restaurant, it's about a 20-minute drive. a couple of bottles were popped in on the ride there, and everyone just really felt it was something really special is gonna happen. It was still really, really dark, and the road was not done from the highway to Jellyfish. It's a really nice highway now, but 6 years ago it was like you just get a kidney massage for like 20 minutes arriving there, and it rained on top of that, and so people were taking swigs of the champagne bottle and going, what the hell are we doing? What are we in for? Which made it that much more special when they arrived and saw how beautiful everything was. Why we chose to have our wedding off resort? I'm going to go into much greater detail about this in future episodes, but for now, I'll just briefly mention that it's perfectly okay and wonderful and special if you're planning to have your wedding on a resort property, whatever resort you chose. But if you're gonna stick around and watch this video channel or have a conversation with me, I'm probably going to continue talking you out of that and talking you into having a wedding off resort somewhere. It's just more special. Listen, resorts are great, but they don't really care. To them, we are just a number. As a bride, we're just a number. They don't care. So when you go off resort, you are going to have a much more special experience when it comes to everything. When it comes to food, service, decorations, less rules, which is a huge one, I think. And also, regardless of the weather, there are no surprises at a venue like Jellyfish. It actually rained twice on my wedding day, but it was great. Rob and I just danced in the rain for the 10-15 minutes that it rained. But there's no surprises because the venue is more or less covered, so it's really easy to come inside, and you could just as easily be outside when it stops raining. And so it's not like this big decision, oh, do we decide to go and have our reception in the ballroom simply because there is a 60% chance of showers or something like that. Also, it's a little bit more expensive, but the prices are super fair for what you're getting at a place like Jellyfish. So it is actually, I believe strongly that it's worth every penny, even if it's going to cost a little bit more. There's much more to the off-resort venue thing, but I'll save that for a future episode. To go over the timeline briefly, this is a question I get all the time from brides who are considering doing something unique and are just like, I'm sorry, what? You got married at sunrise? What do you mean? What does that even look like? So briefly, here's what happened. We had our sunrise ceremony at 6 a.m. and the time changes slightly depending on the time of year. So you can easily look that up on Google if I'm inspiring you to do this too. On April 15th, it was around 6 a.m. And so we made sure that we were as ready as we could be. We didn't have a bridal party, so didn't have to worry about rounding up a bunch of people. And yeah, it was a beautiful ceremony, after which we just had mimosas and chilled a little bit, took some photojournalistic portraits, but nothing crazy because I didn't want to stress people out and have them worry about looking picture perfect that early in the morning. And then we just went back to the resort and all had breakfast. It was so nice because at a resort you just go to the buffet, and we tried to sit at tables that were close together, and it felt like the beginning of making memories together, you know? It wasn't a reception or anything, but we were already all talking about how amazing the experience was and sharing more mimosas and talking about what the day has in store. After breakfast, we all went back to our respective rooms and just had total chill time. Everyone was free to do whatever they wanted. Rob and I went back to the room and just collapsed because it felt like all the nerves we were feeling, all the anticipation let up a little bit, and we were able to have a couple of hours of sleep. Then I took off my dress and got into a bathing suit. We chilled by the pool with other friends and family who were on the same page. It was really, really nice because I felt like we really had the day with everyone together. We made the most of the day. And then around 4 o'clock, we had everyone come together looking sharp and sexy, again in white, so that we could come back to Jellyfish. We came back to Jellyfish, took some more photos, enjoyed the beach, enjoyed appetizers, followed by a yummy dinner. So that's the gist of how things went. Our photographers came all the way from Vancouver to be with us, and they gave us a session after the wedding, which is what a lot of couples do. Given that they were such photojournalistic photographers, which I'm going to talk about later, cons and pros of that, they really took a back seat and let everything unfold as it did. They were not particularly proactive in getting Rob and I to do anything, and I would have done that part maybe a little bit differently too, but since we did have another session with them the next day, I love how everything flowed, how everything went. At this point, I really need to mention a dear friend of mine who was our fairy godmother, I'd say. Maite Marie. At the time, she was the resident wedding planner at Jellyfish. And she took my vision and just amplified it to be something absolutely remarkable. I did tell her, Maite, I trust you. Here's what my dress looks like. You know me, just do something. And she created a wedding theme decor that just took my breath away and ended up in a lot of magazines. I don't want to say that I was the first bride to have a chandelier in my gazebo, definitely not, but maybe one of the first ones in Punta Cana for sure. And the fact that it was still dark when just before we got married, she had electricity in my altar. Girls, there was electricity in my altar. It was so cool. It really made me gasp. It was so beautiful. Actually, I don't think you can see very well, but I have a picture of it in my office, and it's in both blog posts that I referenced earlier. It was really, really beautiful. I also had an aisle created with lots of really beautiful lights, which some brides have done before, but it was kind of all new at the time in Punta Cana, so it was just really, really beautiful. Maite no longer is with Jellyfish. They have a very talented team there right now of decorators, Gianna and Clara. If you're watching, hi. But Maite is still around and is in Punta Cana and is doing some really amazing things. I am going to include a link to connect with everyone, how to connect with Jellyfish, connect with Maite. So if you have a project and are looking for a talented wedding planner, either get in touch with me and I'll put you in touch with Maite, or take a look at the video notes. These are just a couple of little things, but I'm Ukrainian and my wonderful friends incorporated something called the stealing of the bride. It was really cute. It happened just before dinner, and it's a tradition where some of the, how does it go? Some of the groom's friends steal the bride. I mean, literally, I went over somebody's shoulder and they carried me away. And then you're supposed to ask for money to get the bride back. So we had a lot of Canadian guests who did not know of this tradition. And they actually started pulling out money and going like, oh my God, they really stole the bride? That shit happens here? So we raised like $1,000 for me. It was pretty cool. Which we gave back, but the tradition goes, the money raised from the stealing of the bride is supposed to be the bride's first savings account as a newly married woman. Kind of cool, kind of a cool tradition, but made for a lot of fun. We also had a hot sauce bar. Rob and I love spicy food, and we had everyone bring a bottle of either their favorite hot sauce or unique hot sauce, and we had a table of all these hot sauces in a Jellyfish in the reception, and it was just a cute detail. It's small, but I really love that we did that. Lastly, for now, coming to the end of our wedding is entertainment. And if you've seen any blog posts or videos from places like Jellyfish or Huracan, or actually most weddings that happen in Punta Cana, you must know that there are a couple of companies that do shows to get people excited and get people on the dance floor. And for our wedding, again, this was 6 years ago, this was just when entertainment was just starting. They were just playing around with what they can offer. We really lucked out with these incredible capoeira dancers, a couple of Brazilian dudes who aren't here anymore, unfortunately, and some very sexy samba dancers and a dude on stilts and all that stuff. The entertainment has really changed since then. I'm not going to say it's better or worse, it's just different, and I'm going to go over the differences in another episode. I'm going to talk about it particularly in a separate episode, because I feel like brides who go for this entertainment often don't realize what necessarily the entertainment is. And to give you a small example, there's one show where it's basically line dancing for 7 songs in a row, which is really awesome for some weddings of couples whose guests enjoy that kind of thing. But culturally, it might be different. For example, I know that if I had my wedding again at this time, my family would not want to dance for 7 songs line dancing. But bottom line, know what you're getting, and there's some really wonderful options for vendors who do entertainment for the reception. I want to briefly tell you about our decisions for photo and video, which is of course something that is particularly dear to my heart, as Rob and I are wedding photographers ourselves. We struggled with this decision because there's so many incredible photographers in the world, and ended up going for Nordica Photography, 2 guys who split their time now between British Columbia, Canada, and Europe. They are incredible, award-winning artists. And for video, we chose Jack Photo Productions, which is a husband and wife team from California who flew to be with us. I'm in love with the video that they created for us still. I'll also include the link for you so you can enjoy it if you like. I cannot stress enough how important it is to have really incredible videographers and photographers whom you trust and with whom you wouldn't mind hanging out your whole day. It's so important. We spent approximately, I'd say, close to $10,000 including travel on photo and video together, and I would have even paid more. It's that important. In fact, I want to show you in front of me here on the table is our wedding album, and I think in this video you can only see part of it. It's pretty big. It took Rob and I, embarrassing, okay? It took us 5 years to create this album. 5 friggin' years. Just because, I don't know, shoemakers' kids don't have shoes, isn't that how the saying goes? We just kept putting it on the back burner, and I really regret that as well, because I am in love with our book. I'm going to share in the notes, share another link to some close-ups of the albums. Haha, family portraits. And I just love leafing through this book. We pull it out so often. It just sits in our living room all day, and I love that it's already kind of scuffed and looks a little bit worn. It's just really simple brown leather that we went for. It warms my heart to imagine how one day when we're gone, our grandchildren, their children, great-grandchildren might lovingly touch this album, lovingly leaf through the spreads and know and really know how much we love each other and connect with their history, connect with our family in a way that they otherwise wouldn't have. Another album we recently made are books for our parents, and I have a beautiful little book here. And it's just 50 pages, pretty much 50 photographs of moments that could be particularly special to our parents. And honestly, it gives me a lump in my throat to think back to their reaction when they saw this, because it was just everything. It was worth everything. That's about all I wanted to share with you for now. I know I've been talking a lot, and I can't wait to hear from you. It's your turn now. If you enjoyed this video, please let me know. As you can imagine, I put so much heart, so much love and sweat into it. Sweat because I turned off the fan for this video, and I'm just covered in sweat because it's the end of May. But for serious, I put a lot of love and heart into this, and I hope you feel it. Please let me know what topics you'd like to see me talk about in future episodes. To give you an idea of what I'd love to cover are things like how to choose a resort, where to stay when you're here, because there's a ton of mixed reviews on TripAdvisors, and I know that it would be nice to hear from somebody who has seen these resorts multiple times and have witnessed weddings that take place in them. I would also like to talk about our favorite venues. for weddings and which venues are better in which circumstances, so comparing those. Posing tips, as I mentioned earlier, makeup do's and don'ts, things like making the most of your coverage, and I will definitely help you make a timeline that fits your vision, your unique personalities, so that you too can make the most of your amazing destination wedding. Thank you so much for being here with me. I'm Katya Nova. Thank you. I can't wait to see you next time.